This is an example of an offensive foul for an illegal push-off. The dribbler, Buddy Hield, drives to the basket, but he pulls up for a short jumper, and as he does so, he extends his right arm from elbow to wrist to push off his legal defender, Landry Shamet. This is illegal contact initiated by the dribbler, and it is an offensive foul. An offensive player may not push off their legal defender in any way.
Whenever you're working on your ball handling, which we will talk about a little bit later, when you're working on your ball handling, you want to always remember, when you're starting out dribbling, you don't want to practice wrong. Practice makes perfect is what they say, but I say perfect practice makes perfect. So, when you're learning to dribble, don't dribble with both hands on the ball, because that's a simple violation we call double dribbling. Now, when you're not to double dribble, what you have to do is, once you catch the ball, you want to take the ball and release your hand and dribble. But you do not want to, when the ball comes back up, you cannot put your hand back on it. And another thing you cannot do, absolutely cannot do, is once you stop, you cannot stop and put both hands on the ball and start to dribble again, because there again you have double dribble. So keep that in mind whenever you're practicing your drills, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, the ball handling.
With the NBA League. Pass call 855-NBA-LPLP or visit nba.com/league pass. And Holman on Durant. Another turnover by Kevin Durant. He's only got 5 points, 1 field goal.
How many times have we seen Durant catch a pass below the foul line?
Once, maybe?
Maybe one. Maybe once in all of the time that he's been out there. Every time he gets the ball, it's in an isolation, 6 feet behind the three-point.
Pushing can be called on either the offence or defence. It is the forcible moving of a player with any part of the body. Holding is the contact which interferes with the freedom of movement of the offensive player. It can be with any part of the body.
Floor unless passing or shooting. The referee should identify the pivot foot and ensure that the pivot foot remains in contact with the floor if the player is not passing or shooting. A player who changes the pivot foot has committed a travelling violation. Blow the whistle and give the signal. To pass or shoot, the pivot foot can be lifted and a step taken in a continuous motion, but the player must release the ball before the pivot foot comes back to the floor.
Malik Monk doing a good job defensively. So he can guard when he wants to. Yeah, they're calling Monk with a foul. The crowd doesn't like it, but the referee is right. You can put your hand on, but you can't do this.
Frazier and Monk exchanging a few words out there. And now Monk will go off.
If this man has the ball, then he has the rights to certain positions. And this man, as a defender, cannot violate his space as an offensive player. So a couple of different defensive fouls. One is called a reach-in. If this guy's playing, get down in a good defensive stance. If he's playing defense, he cannot reach in through the player and slap at the ball. If he gets into his zone or into his area, that is considered a reach-in, and that's going to be a foul. Also, if this guy were to maybe drop the ball and pick it up, and he would come down and reach in, that's also a foul. Any type of slapping down motion is going to be called a foul. So if you're standing with the ball and he comes down and slaps, most of the time, even if he gets to the ball, he's going to have to come through his hand to get to the ball. So any slapping motion is usually going to be called a foul. And the other most obvious defensive foul is when he's shooting a shot, this guy is not allowed to touch any part of his body. So go ahead and defend it. If he comes through and he brings down and tries to block the shot and he hits his arm, or if he gets his body into the player, that's all going to be called a foul. So the main thing to remember is you got to keep your hands off the player. You can't check them. You can't put your hands on them, and you can't reach in on the play, or you're going to be called for a defensive foul.